Please leave a message after the.
Let's move on to the next documentary, which is the one I requested you to watch specifically. Will You Be My Neighbor? Is the main guy who created this program, is this kid Fred Rogers or?
Everybody knows him as Mr. Rogers, but his name is Fred Rogers, yeah.
Fred Rogers. So I knew nothing about this man. I never watched his program.
Okay.
Really? I mean, you're American. I thought he was like an American.
I never watched Mr. Rogers growing up.
But you saw him on the TV sometimes? You heard about him or?
I
guess he actually is before our time though, right? Because he's so finished.
I was gonna say no. I don't remember him ever popping up on a TV.
So. Oh well, there you go. Actually, he's before our time because his show ended in the early '80s, I think, or in the late '80s. But yeah. Anyway, This guy was another guy. I saw him in pop culture has been harassing this guy for a while, mocking him. Oh, won't you be my neighbor? So I always thought this guy's creepy. Every time I saw him, him and Pee-wee's Playhouse, I always thought these guys are creepy. Yeah, they're just too nice and they're just so weird. And this guy's so well soft spoken. But when this documentary came out, all I heard is that it is such a touching documentary about such a marvelous person, human being, and a lot of people just cried. And they said it was a snub for an Oscar, should have won an Oscar, and the guy was just an amazing human being. You know what? I'm going to let you go first because I spoke so much during the Michael Jackson documentary. I want to hear what you thought of this, and then I'll go after you. What did you think of this documentary and this man and, the whole thing?
I liked it a lot, especially for anybody where Mr. Rogers was an important part of their childhood. I would say definitely watch it. I would give it probably a low first class. I will admit I was one of those people that cried, although I think I cried for different reasons, but knowing nothing about this guy and honestly, actually the history of children's television, it was very informative. I learned a lot. It gave me a lot of respect for the guy, just seeing everything. When by the end of the documentary, well, even in the middle of it, there came to be a point where I think I recognized in him a man who kind of resigned himself to loneliness because he originally was going to be a minister anyways. So I think when he saw what his real calling was, he decided to give his life to children and raising them. And I think it was a very beautiful thing, all the things it was very important to him that children that were missing that kind of contact from their parents, their family, that they got it somewhere. And he did a lot of great stuff. Not just for them, but also for television, actually. I don't think television would be where it is right now in some aspects if it wasn't for him.
I think he was a visionary. And
definitely.
the reason why I say that, he saw something so clearly. I want to make a children's show because children need to be educated. I thought, okay, I've heard this a million times. What is the point? But well, I was very jaded. What goes children entertainer? Yeah, ABC, Sesame Street, same shit. What's the big deal? Why does everyone worship this guy? This guy, when you watch the documentary, what he was trying to get at was when it really comes down to it is one thing. He knew the importance of child psychology. This guy, in my mind, was a true child psychologist. He saw the importance of a child's mind, and that. When you watch a documentary, that slowly creeps up on you, and how important to him it was that he didn't want to shy away from things that you wouldn't really think that normal child television studios don't really focus on. He went all in.
Yeah, like racism, and nationalism, fanaticism, and stuff. Things that kids are going to hear, and especially even in their household. And he gave a counter view to those important topics that shape a child's mind and their attitude and their views of the world.
I'm right there with you. I cried, and the reason why I cried. Why would this documentary make me cry? And there's one part which I don't really want to spoil, but I will kind of dance around it. Why? There's a part where he addresses a certain type of loneliness and self-loathing in such an earnest way, in such a sensitive way, it just cuts right through you. That moment in the documentary where there was an episode where he wanted to tackle something to a child that is so raw and so sensitive that if my parents saw me watching that, it would be too much. My parents, why is he doing this? This is so extreme. And it's something
is it when he was talking about yourself?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was definitely, I think that's one of the moments that I cried too. It was very, people need to hear that, even adults nowadays. I think a lot of social media addiction comes from this need to self-validate, to get some kind of validation. And the reality of the matter is, if you had that in your childhood, like I did, I don't think you need it. I don't feel compelled to post everything on social media like everybody else does because I had that as a kid.
So I want to end on this. I'm a Brit. I'm a UK Brit, born in London. I never knew anything. I was never exposed to this guy in any way, shape, or form until I was watching Family Guy, and he did a skit on him, making fun of him. That was my first introduction to this man. What I saw of him looked creepy. I thought coming in this documentary, there might be some expose that at the end he was, diddling children or something like that, or some crazy shit he did. But nope, this was a truly earnest man who did something so fundamentally important for children. There will never be another one like him because it's a different time today. If someone tried to do something like what he was doing on YouTube, they would just call him a creep. Or they were saying it's a bit too much for children. We live in a very different time right now. Seeing what he did was truly heroic. It was heroic. I hate to throw all these words out there like he's some... I'm just telling you, guys, watch the documentary. You don't even need to know this guy. No matter what part of the world you're from, it doesn't matter. You never watched one episode. What he did was so important, was so earnest, and just it was great, man. I really commend the guy, what he did. I don't know what my life would have been like if I watched it, because he gets him when it's young, which is really cool. Obviously, as an adult, you probably want to watch the show, but if you grew into this show, I really think it could change your life and it could make you a better person and teach you some fundamental things that it might take a therapy session in life, paid therapy, to understand about yourself.
Honestly, I think a lot of adults could use watching the show right now, in our day and age. If I were to describe Mr. Rogers in one word after seeing this documentary, I would definitely say exemplary. That's a very good word for him. He is a benchmark in what people should strive for when it comes not to just teaching children and ushering them through life, the beginning steps of life, but just how to be. He wasn't just that way with kids. They say a bunch of times in the documentary, people would ask, like, is he always like this? Like, yeah, he's always like this. This is him. He doesn't flip around.
I have to say, I think he's a genius in one aspect that I shouldn't, from all of the good stuff he did as well. Using the medium of television and puppetry to get to children is genius. Using that, and him, that's why in a way he's a pioneer of children's television for using that way, because I don't know if he did puppetry before the Muppet Show and Sesame Street and all that other stuff, but what a great way to get through to a child and for them to, impart themselves on that thing. And to avoid, because you can't get actors to do what he did. You can't get, because it'll be wrong. They'll say it's child abuse for them to do some of the things he did. For a child to reenact that, some of the puppetry things he did would be wrong. For you to tell a child, you need to say this, you need to say that. Because he was going for some hardcore stuff. He really was. So yeah, he was great. What a great documentary. Definitely teared me up. What an earnest man. And what a great life, man. He really did make a change. But you have to watch the documentary to see that for yourself, I
recommend it. I recommend it to everybody, honestly. Yeah.
Please leave another message at voiceofmail.com.